Do it. All right, we are live. Welcome everybody to the City Council ARPA workshop. Today is Monday, July 29th, 2024. It is 5:16 PM. Around the table, we have Councillor Leonard, myself, Councillor Pelletier, Councillor Tremble, Councillor Dean, Councillor Fish, Councillor Hawes, Councillor Schaefer, Councillor Fournier, and City Manager Deb Laurie. On the agenda tonight is ARPA, and ARPA. So let's start with the American Rescue Plan update.
Thank you. In your packet, we provided a reconciliation of where we are with our ARPA funds today. We also tried to provide a graphical depiction because sometimes that helps tell a story a little bit differently. So the city was awarded just shy of $20.5 million in ARPA funds between the awards that have been issued and executed with beneficiaries and the government services pieces. The city has allocated, the city council has allocated 17.9 million of that, which leaves a balance of 2.5 million unobligated. There's been a lot of questions and assumptions that with the upcoming date of December 31st, 2024. So what has to happen before December 31st, 2024 is the city must obligate all of these funds for a particular purpose, either to a beneficiary like we did through our competitive process that we conducted with Heart of Maine United Way, or for our own internal purposes. For example, while on here, we consider the school health clinics an internal purpose. We actually report it as a mental health investment. We've also done the public restrooms. We've done a sidewalk plow. We have a couple of 3 city positions as well. So we just need to obligate the balance of the $2.5 million by December 31st, 2024. All recipients have until December 31st, 2026 to fully expend the amounts. So when you're required to expend the amounts by is it 2 full years after you're required to obligate them. So I think what it shows is we did try to aggregate it by category. So for example, so far we have dedicated 22% to housing, 5% to mental health. Other opportunities is 8%. Substance use disorder has gotten 13% of the funding. Workforce development is at 3%. Government services is at 7%. There was a small amount for administration cost. Childcare is 22% and homelessness is 19%. So that was just kind of my American Rescue Plan Act update as to where we sit right now. We do.
So far?
Ooh, yep.
Councillor Tremble?
Well, I know these are obviously just the amounts for the
Yep.
ARPA money, but we also just, I know it doesn't have to be obligated by the end of the year.
Yep.
But the interest money,
Yep.
is that amount showing?
That amount is not shown in
Well, how
here.
much?
It's about, right now, it's about $699,000.
And that's, we can do whatever. we want.
Yep.
Anytime we want to spend.
Correct.
Other questions so far? My question is, there are a couple of organizations that don't seem like they've started to dip into their funds yet.
Yes,
What happens if, let's say it's January 1st,
yes,
2025,
correct.
and one of our awardees comes back and says, things have changed, we can't utilize this money?
Correct. It goes back to the federal government.
Okay, there's no opportunity to reassign it to other awardees?
I don't believe so. I did ask that question early on and I have to go back and double check. But I believe is your obligations are locked as of December 31st of 2024, come January 1 or 2, and somebody says, you know, I can't do this, then the funds go back to the feds,
Okay.
but I will verify.
It would be great to verify. I was reading something online. I think it was from the National League of Cities that said you can, in some cases, move it to other things that you've already obligated funds to.
And that may be
There
it.
seemed like a lot of conditions, so it'd be great for us
Yeah.
to be clear on what our options are.
Sure. And to Council Chair Pelletier's point on the next page, it provides you a status of every award to every beneficiary. And where they are in the process. So the Bangor Children's Home, they have begun the work now. Bangor Region Y would like to come in pre-council on August 12th. Penquist Cap, you can see that the land development permit was approved by the planning board for that particular site, just this month. Bangor Public Library is well underway. Penobscot Community Health, I actually have a meeting with PCHC next week, and then with PCHC in Preble Street later in August. Community Care, they've begun to reach out because they also have county money, so I believe they're looking to do that over the winter months. Bangor Housing Development, we know that they were approved for LIHTC, low income tax credit funding through Maine State Housing, just I think in July or June or July. They will be going to the planning board for their land development permit in August, or they did in August of last year, so they would like to be looking to do their project later this year. We continue to work for Habitat for Humanity to look for opportunities for them to be able to utilize. The Penquist Housing, that utility work did begin in July of 2024 on Milford Street. Together Place Housing is struggling to identify a building for acquisition due to the market.
Can we stop there for a
Yeah.
second? With Together Place Housing, so that's one that, it feels like to me, if there's not a building identified and a contract underway by October, November, we should consider whether we want to obligate those funds to another purpose if possible. Councilor Corninger,
We did set a date on that.
did we?
Yeah, I don't think it got into the order, but I do remember that as part of the
Yeah.
conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think it was
I
September.
remember that was the conversation, yeah. Big Brothers,
Councilor
Big,
Sorry.
sorry.
Just a quick question on Together Place. Are they looking for a secondary location or are they looking to move where they are?
I know.
They're looking for rental units.
Okay,
They'd like to acquire some additional units of housing to be able to offer to folks that participate in their programming.
okay.
That's true, I forget. We have two counselors who weren't even part of this. My apologies.
We have a lot of catching up to do.
Big Brother, Big Sisters of Mid-Maine, they've actually made quite a bit of progress on their mentoring program. So that's well underway. Christine V Foundation, I believe that they too would perhaps have a change in mission. So I will circle up and say, I need to understand what it is you want to do differently. I've actually asked people for August 15th. St. Andre's Home, they have done quite a bit with their project for Courage Lives, sorry. The middle school health clinics are well underway. They are expected to be open for this coming school year. The Together Place Peer Run Recovery anticipates hiring their grant writer development manager this month. Bangor Symphony Orchestra. For those of you who may remember, it was to relocate the Bangor Arts Exchange for performance space, and that clearly is not something that's moving forward at this point. I think they are looking for other space that they may be able to help with performance, but again, I think that comes to Council Chair Pelletier's question about how long is too long and do we want to revisit? So I've also followed up with them.
Okay.
Eastern Area Agency on Aging has done quite a bit of the work as far as the distribution of meals and additional meals for Bangor residents. The Food and Medicine Gardens Program, those funds were distributed. I haven't been up, but I assume they've made the expansions of gardens as they will. Their first reporting period is December 31st of 2024. Maine Discovery Museum, Councilor Schaefer, she reached out. They actually have now an actual design. So that project is moving forward at this point. The Maine Multicultural Center, those funds were dispersed. The person is in place and they have secured the funding for the next 2 years. Wabanaki Public Health, I did hear from them here in the last month and I asked for sort of an updated timeline. I have not heard back. The Bangor Nursing and Rehabilitation Center, the 1/3 share of the emergency generator. They expect to be doing that work later this year. Bangor Area Recovery, yep,
That grant to Wabanaki Public Health is a huge amount of money.
yep,
So can we,
yep. I asked the question today.
okay, great.
Yep.
And then from the Maine Discovery Museum, again, it's a significant grant. Can we ensure that they have a contract in place and signed with a
Yep.
contractor?
They actually have now got the bid documents out.
Great, okay.
Yeah. Bangor Area Recovery Network, they had finally gotten an engineering firm on board because they did realize they needed a project manager. But I can also find out where they are on their projects as well. That was the update that I got, a couple of months ago from them. Fresh Start, virtually all of those funds have been expended. There were the two opportunities. There were the energy efficiency improvements, as well as the acquisition of, I believe it's 100 Center Street. Wellspring, that I'm looking for an update from them as well on the status of their project. That meeting is actually set for next week. And, Health Equity Alliance, they began operations in April of 2024. Because it was an operating grant, you may notice that everybody has sort of an annual reporting requirement. I really wanted that group to come in and report as of June 30th. Because the sustainability of their operation anticipated that they would be generating revenues for certain services. So I think it's important to know where that all stands. The Food and Medicine Workforce Navigator, that person started in March, so is now getting their feet underneath them. Heart of Maine United Way, I'm not sure, this is another large amount, I'm not sure at what point they're gonna be able to actually make a definitive decision on a location. And Literacy Volunteers, they've actually gotten, their development person on board now, so that project is moving ahead.
Counselor Dean?
I guess question on part of Maine United
Yes.
Way, what type of facility are they looking for?
So they have a vision of creating a facility called the Community. And the Community is meant to provide a collaborative resource for all of the nonprofits that they work with on a regular basis. It would provide shared office space, it would provide some training both for their frontline staff, their administrative and executive staff, as well as perhaps a mechanism by which you could cultivate board members for nonprofits in the community. They also from time to time have a need for warehouse space. If people want to donate things, they really don't have a place to store them. And right now they are in rented space. So I think their vision would be a one-stop shop, if you will, for all of the agencies that they partner and work with.
Counselor Fish?
For the Habitat for Humanity, the acquisition of some land where they haven't found any, but the way that it's worded for them, they're being encouraged to work with the city of Bangor and perhaps align their plans with a 10-acre parcel of land. Can you explain to
Sure.
me what that vision and where that land is?
Yeah, so I think when this all started, we were really unsure what we were gonna do with Grandview Avenue. So that's the 10-acre parcel. So we really thought about, could we have a mixed development on that site? I'm still not saying we couldn't, but if we're gonna do an RFP to have a competitive opportunity for a developer to come in to make the project work, it may not be an opportunity. So Ann Krieg, Director of Economic Development, continues to meet with Habitat for Humanity to look for other opportunities. So yes, we're trying to help them in any way possible, either with land we own or making connections with other property owners.
Okay, thank you, because when I saw the 10 acres, I thought, isn't that great?
Yeah. Yeah, and remember, these reporting periods were as of December 31st, 2023, so a lot's changed in the ensuing months. Yep. the government services piece, we have a grant writer on, with all of our positions are filled, we've bought the sidewalk plow. And we are working through the public restrooms and quality housing provider program. And I will say, especially for in the portal, for the reporting of ARPA, you have to report what you're going to be doing. So I've been pretty broad with that government services to provide us some flexibility. So if we get a year from now and we need to swap some money from one bucket to another, we have that opportunity.
Counselor Fournier and then Counselor Trumbull.
I know you have all this information, and this is great as far as a recap. What I would like to see is kind of a breakdown. What has been spent.
Yeah.
In full.
Yeah.
What is considered, will be spent. They've committed or they have. And then what might be in jeopardy of not.
Yeah.
I think it would just kind of help
Nope.
us all.
I can wrap my head around that banking brain right there.
thank you.
I know what that means.
Counselor Trumbull.
Yeah, I know this isn't the meeting for all the detail, but I'm just bringing it up because of the date of August 2nd on the public art piece on the bathroom. But I know that was mentioned, and at
Yeah.
first I thought, well, if they're kind of gray, ugly buildings, maybe we need public art. I actually don't think we need public. I think the restrooms look pretty good the way they are. So did we make a decision to go ahead with public? I thought we put out as maybe it's an option on some of them and maybe not all. So what's the direction on public art on the restrooms?
So when we talked about funding for public restrooms, we said including public art, so I continued forward.
Okay, I thought it was
Assuming.
including public art if we decided to go with that.
Yeah, and I think when we talk to the cultural commission on Friday, we can talk about, maybe we start with 2. And see how that goes, and I look at, I love a theme. So you think about, the dog park on Essex Street.
Right, yeah,
I think that one should have puppies on it and paw prints, I mean,
right.
but I'm not the artist and I'm not the cultural commission, so.
On that same note, I was thinking about the fact that we don't have signs. And I think the door itself should be plain with a sign, and then everything else could be decorated, so people still know.
Yeah.
Because if you see this beautifully decorated building, there's a sign, it's gonna get lost.
Right, which is,
And the main purpose is for it to be a restroom.
so we put up temporary signs on posts. Not knowing kind of what a public art may or may not look like, because we did want to get the signage up. And those are signs that we have sign blanks and we have a sign shop, so those were signs that were relatively easy for us to get up. We'll want to revisit it with permanent signage, but we really did want to get something in place now so that people knew what they were.
Right.
Counselor Schaefer.
I'm in support of actually putting art on them because I think that no matter what, they will get painted. And if we set that tone, it will be a little bit better than if we let other people set that tone.
Counselor
The
House.
door may be
The
painted.
temporary signs actually don't look bad. I mean, the post that it's on, it's silvery color.
Yeah.
And then it's quite high.
It is
and
quite
it's
high.
Right there in front.
I know,
If
but
you
we,
were gonna open the door, it's right there that it is a restroom. So at least they have something on it.
and that was our desire, was to get something up immediately, and that was the quickest thing that we could
Mhm.
get up, so.
I would like to see that the permanent signage be accessible.
Correct, and that's the
Yep.
issue, is we know it's not fully accessible, right? Yeah.
What else? Counselor Fournier? Oh, no, Counselor Fish.
The main multicultural center, and again, where we're new. we
Yeah.
Kind of need to be caught up to speed. Maybe luckily we weren't involved with the effort. We get to have the fun part now and just ask questions. So $70,000, I understand that was for the program manager.
Yes.
But 71 individuals, 23 of which are school children and 5 single individuals. Are these placed in Bangor, and where are they coming from? And, how does this affect me? For $70,000, that seems like a lot of individuals that have come in. It's a great effort and a great result for that, but that's a lot of people, so how does that come into play with Bangor?
So I don't have the data as to where the individuals actually relocated to. Bangor is a resettlement site under federal law. And under federal law, I think, in that way, I think folks can resettle within a 50-mile radius, I believe, is of a designated resettlement site. So it could be within I think it's, don't quote me on the 50-mile radius. Interestingly enough, Catholic Charities of Maine, who actually works as the designated resettlement or agency in our community, is coming to GovOps in the first meeting of September. So they'd be able to provide a lot more detail as to about where individuals were located, number of families, countries of origin, and they'd be able to provide that kind of detail.
Okay, great, thank you.
So I did include in the packet, every beneficiary who was allocated money has a separate agreement. Within that agreement is a required set of annual reporting requirements. And what I included was in the background is sort of in the bolded is the question that we ask and then their response that they provided. As of December 31st of 2023, I can honestly say that when I set reporting timelines, I never thought about the fact that it was gonna lay on top of the budget. So we'll work to try to get some of that done a little bit earlier and have that conversation. So we're not having this conversation in the summer. But I think, depending on when the final agreement was in place, a number of agencies' first reporting period is December 31st of 2023. We have one agency that starts June 30th of 2024, and the balance will be December 31st of 2024. And I will determine what we need to do as far as if something is obligated, what kinds of leeway we do have, and follow up, especially with some of these larger ones on where they actually are from a timeline, which will actually tie in, I think, to what Councilor Fornio was actually asking to. This is how much was awarded, this is how much has been dispersed to date. This is sort of the planned drawdown for those funds, if I'm, okay. I am reading that correctly.
I'm
And I-
thinking, yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, and I was gonna just add to that, it's a similar but related question. Is the council took a lot of time and effort going through all of these applications and making recommendations for funding. And I know that there are gonna be some agencies who are gonna wanna say, well, could we do something different? And I believe that becomes a little bit difficult for this council, the position for you all to be put in. I think if it is at least very closely related, maybe instead of at this place, it's this place, I think it's a little bit easier, but I think if it's a big change in direction, I think it puts you all in a difficult position, because then if everybody had it all over to do today, what would they apply for differently?
Right.
And I think that's just my opinion.
So what would you recommend in terms of how we keep on top of this for the next few months? Do we review this at every GovOps? That's once a month? Do we do a quick check-in at every pre-council workshop? I just want to make sure that as we get close to December, that not a single dollar goes to
That's
waste,
correct.
if we can possibly avoid it.
So can I suggest that for the first check-in, we'll do the second council workshop in August?
Okay.
The first one's already pretty full. And then that will give me a chance to go back to these agencies, get the information as to what their timeline is, and then we can talk about it. But you're right, we should be we should have this fully nailed down by October.
Okay. Any questions or comments, objections on that? Councilor Leonard?
I think one thing that would benefit us for future planning is to make sure that we have a last ditch bucket list of projects that if worst case scenario happens, if something falls through on a project and we get to December 30th and we need a new project to go forward on, that we have something that we know it might not be our first option, but we know to throw money at X project because we're not able, because we already have that planned out. So I just want to make sure that regardless of what those plans are, that should be one of our first priorities to accomplish in August.
Yeah, agreed. I think that's smart for us to have our backup plan to the backup plan.
And I guess on that note, I mean, my initial thought would be, is that we would find a purpose within government services. And we would just broadly define within that project description. The out for that is you have a $10 million that you're allowed to use for government services. We're only at, that says 2 million, but that includes the health clinics, which we're gonna classify as mental health. So, you know, we're at 1.5, so we have plenty of capacity there. And that would be my suggestion, that we identify, you know, as Counselor Leonard said, some particular municipal projects that we know will benefit our community.
Counselor Shaker?
If it's tagged as government services, can it still be, given with the assumption that it would be for, aligning with the other principles that we have, like housing, childcare, whether it's updating Parks and Rec summer camp programs or things like that. I just want to say go to government services and then turn into everyone gets a Lambo.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
like that would happen, but
Yes.
just that it still goes to sort of the intent, the spirit of the intent and not,
Yes. Not lost and
not lost in.
not sucked up in
Yeah.
staff and salaries. Yes.
Other discussion? Okay,
Mhm.
Yeah, just to echo on that, maybe for capital.
Yeah,
Okay. Just wanna be
Yeah,
clear.
no,
I just
yeah,
wanna be
yeah.
clear.
definitely, yeah,
You said,
whether
you
it's,
said staff. and-
I said not staff.
I know.
Is what I was
just
trying to
wanna-
say,
yeah.
yes. You know, I think there are plenty of, you know,
Yep.
there are plenty of plow trucks, sidewalks, trails.
right,
And I'm leaving somebody else and they're gonna be upset, but I'm gonna stop there, yes. So I would, you know, at this point thus far this year, the council has really identified housing as its priority. To date, you've really been, supportive of obligating a significant portion of the remaining funds to the installation of infrastructure to the 10-acre parcel on Grandview to support additional housing. The other, area of development that we have is in the area of Stillwater and Hogan. There are some large tracts of undeveloped land, over there. We actually had a developer who'd come in and was pretty close to doing something, and then they just couldn't make the math work. But what we found out at that point was that Kmart's pump station was gonna be a pinch point for further development in that area. We actually have, we're expecting an engineering analysis back in the next week or so that identifies the capacity issues both at Kmart and Perry Road, which we know, and suggest a couple of alternatives. So I'd like to see us perhaps consider allocating this money to housing, whether it's for infrastructure specifically that will support housing development. And at least, as I sit here today, I'm gonna say that the two primary projects I'm thinking about are Grandview Avenue and what we may need to do to address the pinch point at Kmart pump. We call it Kmart pump station. It isn't Kmart, but we've got to find a new name.
it's probably
So-
gonna be Kmart pump station forever.
No.
Counselor House?
By most people. I'm fine with sticking with the housing, because that was something that we hammered out as a council in the beginning. However, I really want to be sure that it does include, and I talked to you
Yeah.
about this earlier, the infrastructure for new development, because if we don't do that, developers are not gonna be interested in that area, and they have to turn around and put all that extra money into it. So as long as we can keep an eye on the infrastructure as
Mhm.
compared to the developments going in, I'm good with that. I think it's a good choice.
Counselor Dean?
Do we have any kind of a ballpark on infrastructure for a 10-acre parcel of land?
For a rough number, we've been using 2 million. That's streets, sidewalks, sewer, water, electricity, conduit for,
Mhm.
you know, internet, phone, whatever it may be.
Council Bernier?
So when you say pinch point, it's because Kmart doesn't have the capacity?
Yes. Yep. And there are a couple of alternatives. You can either look at it from replacing the pump station, or you can look at creating a gravity feed. And the gravity feed is what they were initially looking at, but we really wanted to take a better look at the surrounding properties and make sure that any solution that we consider advancing meets the needs.
So that project is something the water district handles?
No. No, because it's sanitary sewer.
Oh, it's a pump station for the sewer,
Yeah.
but does water go, is there water out
So
there?
water goes pretty close.
Okay.
So the first parcel that came in and started talking to us in earnest was the parcel on the corner of Chase and Stillwater.
Mhm.
And sewer.
Was there a zoning issue with that part?
So we got that zone, they got it rezoned, and remember,
Just
they
not
wanted
all
that,
of it, right?
right, they wanted that other parcel that didn't get rezoned. But even without that, they came back and just said the construction costs,
Okay.
the per unit costs were too high. But sewer and water come most of the way to that
Mhm.
property, so they were perfectly happy to add, to connect to the existing. The issue would be downstream, we would have some capacity issues. There is now somebody else looking at a different parcel in that similar area that has the same question, because they know that it was a concern. And we assured them that, yes, we have an engineering study coming back. And, yes, we're looking to address it, because there are 2 or 3 very large tracts of undeveloped property out there that are very close to existing sewer and water. So to make that additional run isn't really a big investment for them. And it's a big investment, but it's not.
Mm.
Sure. All right. If that's the case, then I'll go ahead and prepare a council order that will obligate the balance of the funds, 2,551,851 for housing infrastructure that supports housing development.
I'm fine with that.
So the thought process behind that would be Grandview and or
And,
Kmart.
yes. Yep.
Okay.
And I think those 2 I will specifically identify,
Yeah, okay, that's good.
in the council order itself.
Do you need a roll call vote or just thumbs up?
Thumbs up would be good. Cool.
Okay.
And I think the last item is, we said we'd come back in August and make sure that we stay on track. But.
Sounds good. Anything else? Good of the order? We're adjourned.
Thank you all for coming in for that.
Debbie.
Yes.
So I was,
Anyway.
Okay.